Imagine for a moment that everything you've ever desired, love, success, respect, abundance, is already yours. Not in some far-off future, not in a place waiting to be earned, but right here, right now, hidden in the folds of your awareness. The world around you bends itself to the shape of your inner conviction, and life becomes not a chase but a mirror. You are not the seeker of value, you are the value. You are not the beggar knocking on the door of opportunity. You are the invitation itself. When you walk into a room, walk with the quiet knowing that your presence alone is enough, not because of your looks, your money, your titles, or your past, but because of who you are within. That divine self that no one sees but everyone feels. The world responds not to your desperation, not to your effort, but to your assumption. What you assume to be true of yourself, the world rushes to confirm. So act not from lack, but from fullness. Do not ask, will they choose me? But instead, am I choosing myself in every moment? To act as if you are the prize is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is the holy recognition that you do not need to prove, to beg, or to lower your light so others feel comfortable. The sun does not apologize for its brilliance, and neither should you. People may try to convince you that humility means shrinking, but true humility is knowing your worth without shouting it. It is wearing your crown even when no one claps. It is knowing that your value is not up for negotiation, not dependent on who accepts you or who walks away. You do not become the prize by earning it through external achievements. You are the prize because you were born with the spark of the eternal within you. The outer world may forget it, but your soul never does. And when you remember it, deeply, fiercely, and consistently, the world begins to reflect it back to you. Doors open without knocking. People shift in your presence. Circumstances rearrange themselves, not because you chased, but because you became. So carry yourself as one who already holds the treasure. Speak as one who already knows the answer. Think as one who is already chosen. Because to act as if you are the prize is to stop seeking and start radiating, and the universe cannot resist the one who no longer resists themselves. You are not incomplete waiting to be completed. You are not half a soul looking for its other part. You are the whole, and the whole does not chase, it attracts. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to remind others of what they've forgotten about themselves. But that reminder can only come when you first remember your own sacred worth. When you embody your power, silently, consistently, and with grace, you activate the very force that shapes reality. Not by force, but by frequency. You will see people who used to ignore you now trying to capture your attention. Not because you changed your face, but because you changed your inner stance. You became unbothered. You stopped reaching. You ceased to beg. And in doing so, you became magnetic. The prize does not chase, it waits. It knows that what is meant to find it will come. Not because it needs it, but because it matches it. So stand tall, not because life has given you a reason, but because you have decided to be the reason. Walk into every moment like the answer, not the question. Speak from certainty, not fear. Think from completion, not craving. And you will begin to see that you were never meant to find value. You were meant to awaken to the truth that you are, and always have been, the value itself. The world you see around you is not merely a stage of external events and random outcomes. It is, in truth, a faithful mirror, an exact reflection of the internal beliefs you carry about yourself. Every interaction, every delay, every blessing, every rejection, they are not accidents. They are responses to your dominant state of consciousness. When you believe you are not enough, life seems to echo that belief back to you. People overlook you. Opportunities pass you by. Respect is denied. But the moment you shift within, the moment you assume that you are the prize, everything begins to change. not because the world suddenly becomes generous, but because you have changed the signal you are broadcasting. You see, life listens not to what you say, not even to what you want, but to what you assume to be true. If deep within you hold the belief that you are secondary, unworthy, replaceable, or lacking, you will find yourself in situations that confirm it. You may try to hide this belief with surface-level confidence, with polished appearances, or with ambition, but the universe does not respond to the mask, and it responds to the root. And until that root belief is transformed, you will find yourself circling the same experiences, wondering why others seem to be chosen while you are overlooked. But here is the miracle. The moment you begin to assume differently, life begins to respond differently. You do not need to wait for validation. You do not need a new wardrobe or a new degree or someone's permission. You need a new assumption. Imagine waking up and walking through your day with the inner conviction that you are the prize, not arrogantly, not loudly, but silently, deeply, and unshakably. You begin to think differently, not because someone complimented you, but because you remembered who you are. You begin to walk with calm presence, not because the world told you to, but because your inner world has settled into truth. From this new assumption, the mirror must reflect a new image. People start treating you with unexpected kindness and respect. Invitations arrive. Eyes linger longer, doors open faster, and it's not because you have become someone new, but because you finally allowed the truth of who you are to radiate from within. You were always the prize, but you spent years acting like the pursuer, believing that value was outside of you, something to be earned or chased. Now you realize it was within you the whole time. Your world is only confirming what you now believe. This is why you must protect your inner assumptions with fierce dedication. Do not let the outer world dictate how you feel about yourself. The world is not the cause, it is the effect. If someone mistreats you, instead of spiraling into self-doubt, go within and ask, what belief am I holding that allows this behavior to reflect in my world? Then shift it. Choose again. Assume again, because once you assume your worth, the world cannot help but reflect that worth back to you. This is not delusion. This is alignment. You are aligning with the truth of your spiritual identity, and that identity is powerful, radiant, whole, and worthy. The false humility that tells you to shrink, to doubt, to remain small, that is the true illusion. But the quiet certainty that says, I am enough, I am chosen, I am the prize, that is the beginning of all transformation. The shift begins not in changing others, but in changing the way you see yourself. Even when circumstances seem unchanged, hold your assumption. Even when others do not see it yet, do not waver, because the mirror takes a moment to catch up with the new image you are holding, but it must reflect it. It has no choice. That is the law. Your assumption is the seed, and your world is the soil. Once planted, it begins to grow. You will see evidence, and that evidence will strengthen your faith. And soon, the old reality that once ruled you will seem like a distant dream, because you will have created a new one from within. To act as if you are the prize then is not to manipulate the world. It is to accept that the world can only mirror back what you've dared to believe about yourself. The change you seek is not out there. It is in the silence of your own consciousness. Begin there and watch how the world must respond. There is a profound shift that happens the moment you stop seeking and start radiating. Seeking is rooted in lack. It says, I do not yet have, therefore I must chase. But radiating emerges from inner knowing. It says, it is already mine, so I need only to be. When you seek, you send a message to life that you are incomplete, that you are in need, that something vital is missing. And life, being the perfect mirror, reflects back that sense of lack. But when you begin to radiate, you no longer broadcast need, you exude presence. You become a signal of wholeness. And suddenly, Everything you once chased begins to find you. It is not about doing more. It is about being more aligned. When you stop running after love, approval, recognition, or success, you begin to carry yourself with a stillness that is more powerful than words. You no longer ask the world to notice you because your energy already commands attention. People may not know why they feel drawn to you, why they respect you more, why they want to be around you, but they will feel it. That feeling is your radiance, and it is born not from effort, but from assumption. To radiate is to know who you are deeply and silently. It is to walk into any space not asking to be chosen, but knowing that your worth does not increase or decrease based on someone else's response. You are not moved by attention, nor are you diminished by silence. Because you have anchored your value inwardly, the outer world becomes a place of reflection, not validation. And that is where true power lives. Power that does not seek to impress. Power that simply is. Many people confuse radiance with arrogance, but the two could not be further apart. Arrogance shouts from insecurity, radiance whispers from certainty. When you radiate, you do not need to argue for your value. You do not need to compete for space. You simply exist in the fullness of your being, and that fullness becomes a light others cannot ignore. The rose does not chase the bee. The sun does not plead with the earth to rotate. Their function is not to seek, but to shine. Think about the times when you felt the most magnetic, the most powerful, the most free. It was likely not when you were seeking approval, but when you were immersed in being fully yourself. No masks, no trying, just being. That state of effortless presence is the key, and the more you cultivate it, the more you'll notice that people, ideas, and outcomes begin to orbit around you. Not because you demanded it, but because you became the source. This transformation requires a quiet confidence, a willingness to stop performing and start embodying. You no longer need to ask, "Am I enough?" Because the question itself fades in the presence of truth. And the truth is that you have always been enough. The seeking was just a distraction, a symptom of forgetting. When you remember who you are, not with ego, but with reverence, you no longer feel the urge to reach outward. You realize that everything is attracted to the one who no longer chases. It is important to recognize that the shift from seeking to radiating is not something others grant you, it is something you decide. It is a choice you make in the stillness of your own mind. You decide to stop begging the world to see you, and instead you see yourself. You stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to feel worthy, and instead you declare yourself worthy now. This is not fantasy, this is faith. And faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. When you radiate, you move differently. You speak with more intention, you rest without guilt, you listen without fear. You show up not because you are trying to earn something, but because your presence is already a gift. You start to find beauty in your solitude, peace in your stillness, and joy in your being. And from that place of inner wholeness, what is truly yours begins to flow toward you, not because you hunted it down, but because you finally aligned with it. So if you find yourself exhausted from the constant chase, chasing love, chasing attention, chasing success, know this: you do not have to run anymore. Be still and know. The moment you begin to radiate is the moment the world begins to respond, not with chaos, but with clarity, not with scarcity, but with abundance, because you have stopped screaming into the void and started vibrating with truth. The world cannot help but move toward one who no longer seeks validation from it. There is something irresistible about a soul that has remembered its worth, a soul that has nothing to prove, nothing to chase, and nothing to fear. That is the essence of true radiance, and when you live from that essence, everything changes, because you change first. There is a quiet freedom that comes with knowing you are already complete. Not someday, not when someone loves you, not when the world finally recognizes your efforts, but now, in this very moment. You are not half a soul searching for its other part. You are not a broken piece hoping someone will come along to fill your cracks. You are whole. Spiritually, emotionally, energetically, you are a full expression of life itself. Acting as if you were the prize begins with understanding that you were never meant to be completed by another person, situation, or outcome. You were designed to be complete, to know yourself as enough before the world even speaks your name. Most people walk through life trying to earn their completeness. They look for it in relationships, hoping that someone's love will finally make them feel valuable. They seek it in achievements, thinking that success will silence the inner voice of inadequacy. They chase it in possessions, hoping that if they acquire enough, they will finally feel like they matter. But wholeness cannot be found in fragments, and that what is already whole cannot be improved by what is temporary. The truth is, you came into this world with everything you needed. You just forgot. And in that forgetting, you began to act from lack. You began to seek approval, to crave attention, to depend on other people's opinions, to feel secure. You began to overgive, to over-explain, to overextend yourself just to be seen. You accepted less than you deserved because you believed deep down that you had to earn love, earn respect, earn belonging. But what if you didn't? What if you already had it within you? And then, what if the love you give so freely to others was always meant to be reflected inward first? When you act as if you are complete, you no longer tolerate situations that diminish you. You no longer participate in relationships that drain you. You no longer give your power away in the hope that someone will return it with affection. You understand that your self-worth is not a negotiation. It is a sacred knowing. It is the truth you carry even when no one claps, even when no one stays, even when the world seems silent. Because true wholeness does not require applause to be real. It simply is. To act from completeness is not to reject connection. It is to approach connection from fullness rather than from hunger. You no longer say, I need you to make me feel whole. Instead, you say, I welcome you into the abundance I already carry. There is no desperation in this, no clinging, no fear of abandonment, because you are not grasping for completion. You are sharing from overflow. And that shift changes everything. People sense it. They feel it in your presence. They respect it even if they cannot explain why. Living from completeness means that you no longer chase the things that once haunted you. You stop chasing closure because you understand that peace is an internal decision, not a gift someone else grants you. You stop chasing validation because you are already rooted in self-approval. You stop chasing the fantasy of being saved because you know that your strength has always been enough to carry you through. The chase ends. And in its place, calm begins. You do not need to announce your completeness. You do not need to prove it. In fact, the most complete souls are often the quietest, not because they lack power, but because they no longer need to display it. Their peace speaks louder than performance ever could. Their silence is not emptiness. It is fullness too deep for words. And in that quiet strength, they become unshakable. Life may rise and fall around them. People may come and go, but they remain anchored, not to ego, but to truth. When you truly know you're whole, you begin to trust life in a new way. You no longer try to control everything. You no longer fear being alone. You no longer measure your worth by how others treat you. Instead, you begin to rest, not in laziness, but in confidence. You begin to let go, not from defeat, but from wisdom. And you begin to receive, not because you need, but because you are ready. You become magnetic, not by striving, but by being. You attract what is aligned, and what is misaligned falls away without resistance, not because you fought it, but because it no longer matches your inner reality. You have become the prize, not just in word but in state of being. And from that state, you do not beg, you do not chase, you do not break. You simply stand, complete, worthy, unmoved. This is the power of knowing you are not a fragment in search of your missing piece. You are the whole picture. And when you live from that truth, life begins to mirror it, not because it changed, but because you did. Best I can think of is forms. There is an invisible stance you carry, one that speaks louder than words, more forcefully than any action. It is the quiet, unspoken message you send out through your body language, your choices, your silence, your energy. This inner posture is not seen with the eyes, but it is deeply felt by the world around you. Your inner stance determines your outer results, not because the universe plays favorites, but because the outer world is always responding to the energetic blueprint you hold within. You are not a passive participant in your life's outcomes. You are the origin point. What you carry in consciousness becomes what you experience in reality. You could say all the right words, wear the right clothes, show up in the right places, and still watch life pass you by, if your inner stance is one of fear, doubt, or unworthiness. And you could do very little externally, speak softly, remain unseen, yet command extraordinary results. If your inner stance is one of assurance, wholeness, and knowing, the external world has no choice but to respond to the vibration you live in. That's why two people can enter the same room, say the same thing, apply for the same opportunity, and receive completely different responses. It is not the action alone, it is the posture from which the action arises. When you carry yourself with the quiet belief that you are not enough, you unconsciously push away the very things you desire. Opportunities slip through your fingers. Relationships remain shallow or unstable. Respect is denied without explanation. But the moment you shift within, the moment you stop approaching life from a place of needing to prove something, everything changes. You stop needing to convince people of your worth, and instead you begin to show up as someone who already knows it. That knowing, that deep inner stance, becomes your signature energy, and the world cannot help but respond. Most people are taught to fix the outer before addressing the inner. They try to manipulate circumstances, control outcomes, change others. They hope that if they can just get life to behave the way they want, they will finally feel safe, valuable, powerful. But this is a backwards equation. The inner always comes first. The outer is the echo. So if you want life to treat you differently, you must first treat yourself differently. In thought, in belief, in assumption. There is nothing more powerful than the energy of someone who has decided to no longer betray themselves. Someone who no longer walks into a room hoping to be chosen, but who knows they belong wherever their feet are placed. Someone who no longer apologizes for their presence, their needs, or their truth. That kind of person doesn't dominate others. They don't shout to be seen, but their calm is commanding and their silence is full. Their stillness is magnetic. Why? Because their inner stance is rooted in unshakable worth. And this inner stance cannot be faked. You cannot pretend to believe in your value. You cannot force alignment through performance. The universe does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you truly believe you deserve. If your actions are motivated by fear, the result will reflect fear. If your words are rooted in insecurity, but if you move from a place of spiritual confidence, knowing that your value is not up for debate, then every step you take becomes a seed of power, and the harvest will come not by striving, but by standing. This is why you must guard your inner world. Watch what you allow yourself to believe. Be aware of the narratives you rehearse in your mind. Do you constantly imagine being overlooked, rejected, betrayed? Or do you imagine being honored, loved, respected? Do you walk through your day with a posture of scarcity or a posture of sufficiency? These choices are subtle, but they are everything. Because the world is not responding to your effort, it is responding to your energy. You don't need to fix your appearance, your status, or your resume to change your results. You need to fix your stance. You need to wake up and declare in the silence of your heart that you will no longer carry the energy of someone who doubts their own worth. You will no longer tolerate the internal dialogue that says, I am too much or I am not enough. You will no longer approach life as if you are at its mercy. Instead, you will begin to live as if life is responding to you. Because it is. And when you change your stance, people begin to treat you differently without understanding why. Suddenly, you are respected in a room where you were once dismissed. You are seen where you were once invisible. You are remembered where you were once forgotten. Not because they changed, but because you did. And this change doesn't require noise or grand gestures. It simply requires consistency. You begin to embody the energy of someone who knows their value and refuses to be moved by circumstances that do not align with it. The stance you carry is your authority. When you align it with truth, your truth, the world follows. Every result you seek is already on the other side of your inner decision to stop begging for what you were meant to command. And when that decision is made, everything shifts. Not from the outside in, but from the inside out. There is a sacred stillness in the soul that knows its worth. It does not chase, it does not beg, it does not exhaust itself trying to be seen, heard, or chosen. It waits, not with passivity, but with powerful awareness. It waits because it understands one eternal truth. The prize never pursues. The prize knows that what is aligned will find it. It understands that to be the prize is to be sought, not to seek. And this is not about ego or arrogance. It is about identity. It is about finally stepping into the place where you stop trying to prove your value and start embodying it. When you act as if you are the prize, you take your attention off of the noise. You no longer react to every slight, chase after every opportunity, or cling to people who don't see you. You step back into your center. And from that center, you remember that what is truly meant for you is never something you have to fight for. It will be drawn to you, not because you forced it, but because your energy called it in. The prize does not move toward the world in desperation. The prize stands rooted and allows the world to move toward it. So, many people wear themselves thin trying to be enough for others, running after love, chasing respect, hoping that if they give more, prove more, sacrifice more, they will finally be chosen. But that energy only leads to disappointment. Why? Because it's not the nature of the prize to chase. It's the nature of the prize to attract. If you're constantly chasing, you're not aligned with the essence of your own value. You're not standing in the frequency of already being chosen. You're operating from lack. And lack always creates more lack. Stop chasing doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become cold or indifferent. It means you become discerning. You recognize what deserves your energy and what doesn't. You understand that not everything that glitters is gold, and not every open door leads to purpose. So you wait, not with fear, but with faith. Faith that the right people, the right moments, the right blessings will always make their way to you, not because you demanded them, but because you became the version of yourself who no longer begs. Waiting is the prize of an inner knowing. It's the quiet confidence that says, if it is meant for me, it will not miss me. And if it misses me, it was never mine. It's the refusal to shrink, to settle, or to compete for attention. Because deep within, you understand that the things you're meant to experience are already drawn to the vibration you hold. Raise your vibration, and what no longer fits will fall away. Stand still in your truth, and what aligns will show up. Sometimes without announcement, without effort, without warning. The prize never fears missing out. The prize is not shaken by delay or by silence. It trusts, not passively but spiritually. It trusts that its worth will always be recognized by the right eyes. It trusts that it is not hidden, it is protected, and that protection is not rejection, it is redirection. You don't need to chase after validation when you are anchored in identity. You don't need to run after what you believe is yours. You become the gravitational pull. What is aligned cannot resist you, not when you are rooted in the truth of who you are. This mindset is not common because it goes against everything the world teaches. The world teaches hustle, pursuit, desperation. It says, don't sit still, go out and get what you want. And there is value in action, yes. But there is a difference between action from alignment and action from insecurity. Chasing from insecurity is exhausting and often fruitless. But standing in identity and letting your energy do the calling, that is mastery. That is spiritual power. You become selective, not because you are too proud, but because you finally understand your worth. You stop explaining yourself to those who don't understand you. You stop trying to convince anyone of your goodness, your loyalty, your heart. You don't lower your standards for fleeting attention. You don't chase half efforts. You wait. Because you know, and in that knowing, there is peace. When you stop chasing and start embodying the truth that you are the prize, everything begins to shift. The people who once overlooked you begin to wonder. The ones who took you for granted begin to regret. The doors that once stayed closed begin to creak open, not because you knocked harder, but because you became undeniable. That's what happens when you rest in your power. The world adjusts to you. That anxiety, you no longer wake up in anxiety, trying to plan every step to get what you want. You wake up in confidence, knowing that what is yours is already on its way. You focus on becoming, not impressing. You focus on alignment, not performance. And the most beautiful part is this: when the blessings arrive, they don't feel like a reward for chasing. They feel like a natural response to your energy. Because you didn't chase, you chose. You chose yourself. And in doing so, you gave the world no other option but to choose you too. There is a transformative power in living as though it is already done. This is not wishful thinking or blind optimism. It is a deliberate act of spiritual authority. To assume that your desires are already fulfilled is to step into the energy of completion before the physical evidence appears. This is how true creation happens, not through hoping and waiting, but through becoming. But when you act as if you are the prize, you no longer operate from a place of lack, of trying to become worthy or trying to earn love or success. You begin to assume that everything you seek is already yours, and in doing so you collapse the distance between desire and manifestation. When you carry yourself as though the outcome is already secured, your thoughts shift, your emotions shift, your posture shifts. You stop asking, when will it happen, and begin living from the place of it is already mine. That is the difference between doubt and faith. Doubt looks outward for reassurance. Faith rests inward with conviction. To assume it is already done is to choose faith over fear, trust over striving, alignment over anxiety. You do not need to see the manifestation to believe in it. In fact, you must believe in it before you see it. That is the nature of all divine creation. Every great shift in life begins in the unseen, in the quiet chambers of the heart and mind. The world will always try to convince you that you must wait for signs, that you must be patient for proof. But the moment you begin to embody the version of yourself who already has what you desire, you send a new signal into the field of life. And life begins to respond not to your hope, but to your knowing. There is no faster way to transform your life than to assume you are already living the reality you seek. You want love? Then walk in the energy of one who is already loved, deeply, fully, without condition. You want success? Then speak, think, and move like someone who already carries success in their being. You want healing? Then dwell not in the sickness, but in the feeling of restoration and strength. This is not denial. This is decision. A decision to no longer reinforce the energy of what is lacking, but to nurture the frequency of what is becoming. The world around you begins to shift not when you complain, not when you wait, not when you demand, but when you decide. You decide who you are, and you hold that decision in your body, in your words, in your energy. It becomes your new normal. And the moment you normalize abundance, peace, love, respect, joy, those very things begin to find you, because you are no longer seeking them. So many people walk through life waiting for something to happen before they give themselves permission to feel good. They wait for love to feel worthy, wait for money to feel secure, wait for recognition to feel validated. But life doesn't work that way. The feeling must come first. The assumption must precede the evidence. If you walk as though it is already yours, you bridge the gap between the invisible and the visible. You become a magnet for the very things that once seemed distant. Acting as if it is already done does not mean pretending. It means aligning your inner world so completely with the outcome that it becomes more real to you than what your eyes can see. You close your eyes and dwell in the fulfilled state. You visualize not as a dreamer but as a creator. You speak not about what you hope for, but from what you know. And when you move from this place, your actions are not driven by fear, they are guided by confidence. This is the essence of walking by faith and not by sight. Faith does not consult the senses, it consults the spirit. And your spirit already knows what is meant for you. It already knows that the vision in your heart was placed there for a reason. The moment you stop questioning it and start living as though it is already done, the entire universe begins to rearrange itself to support your assumption. So wake up each day with the posture of fulfillment. Let your conversations reflect the confidence of one who is already chosen. Let your choices reflect the wisdom of one who already possesses clarity. Let your energy reflect the peace of one who is not waiting, but welcoming. And in doing so, you rise above circumstance. You step outside of time. You walk ahead of the evidence because you are no longer trying to create from lack. You are creating from truth. And truth does not need to be proven. It only needs to be embodied. When you embody the energy of your fulfilled desire, the mirror of life cannot help but reflect it back, not because you forced it, but because you finally became it.